All right, well, let's get started. So welcome everyone. This is our April 2023 TopoONE by Crisis24 product showcase. I am joined today by Kelly Parker and Bridget Reed. This is Mike Gilbert, and we are going to run through our latest changes to the application and jump in and show you some of those changes, get you familiar with some of the new features that we've added. And then we're going to spend some time on the roadmap today as well and go through that. On the call today, you are muted, but we do have a Q&A panel that you can enter any questions into. So just go ahead and type in any questions as we go through the presentation, and we'll answer those. And Kelly and Bridget will let me know if we have any questions, and we can answer those as we go through. We can also answer those at the end, but we typically like to answer those as we're walking through some of the features, so we can maybe hit on some of those questions that you might have. All right, so without further ado, I do want to talk about first and foremost what we've added recently to the application, especially for this year. Our last product showcase was back in December, so I do want to talk about basically everything we've done this year to date. And then, like I said before, we'll also show a lot of this information or these features in the application as well. So a big change for us was reworking the map essentially so that we have increased performance. We have a lot of customers that want to display a lot of information in Topo, whether it's lots of employees that they have around the globe, it could be, or lots of maybe facilities that they have around the globe as well. We wanted to make sure the map is as performant as possible. So when you're zooming, panning, we have as much speed as possible on our map. So we began this project back in the fall of last year to really rework the entire map so that we have this thing as performant as possible. So that was a big change, something you're really not going to notice because it's really underlying. What you should see though are increased performance with how the map does work and when you're interacting with the map as well. And obviously we want to know if you do see some things that maybe aren't as performant as they should be. So obviously always report those, but that was a big undertaking for us. Like I said, it began in the fall and we really wrapped that up January, February timeframe this year. Then we moved on to enhancing a lot of the weather, the out-of-the-box weather and natural disaster information that we have. I'm going to show you that today. We reworked what shows in the right side drawer. So for example, when you click on an earthquake or a tropical cyclone or your typical run-of-the-mill weather alert or wildfire. So I do want to talk a little bit about that, show you some of the changes we made there. We added a new feature, which was in-app notifications. I'm going to show you that feature as well and how that can be leveraged in the application and how you can set that up. We did some other enhancements to the right side drawer in terms of the things that we're showing at the top to make it much more clear and concise and easy for you to understand the data that you're looking at. So things like power outages, even things like your facility information, we've definitely reworked how that displays at the top. We did rebrand the application with the acquisition. So we rebranded the application and added in our Crisis24 branding. Of course, we worked on a lot of integrations. We do these all the time. We continually work on integrations for customers. So DMP was a big one for alarms. We added some cell tower cameras from LiveView, ProWatch from Honeywell, Flight Radar, which I'm going to show you as well today. I'm going to show you that integration so you can understand how that looks. And we added Risk Intelligence, which is an intelligence provider from OnSolve. We added that. And we added language support. So we're out of the box now in 16 languages that can be purchased as well. So if you do have needs for multilingual for different users that you have around the globe, we can support that now. And also, you all should have received our first product update newsletter a few weeks ago. And that is now going to be something that we do every month. What that'll give you is an idea for some of the new features that we're launching, along with some details and some other information about Crisis24 in general. It also, for example, contained the information about this particular product showcase. So be on the lookout for that. If you didn't get that, please let Bridget or Kelly know. We're going to always refine our distribution list and make sure that we have everybody on that particular distribution list. All right, so before we get to the roadmap, I do want to show you a lot of the different things in the application that we just talked about. So let me stop sharing my screen. And we're going to go ahead and also show the application here as well. So let's do that. All right. Okay. So this hopefully all looks familiar to everybody. This is the operating picture. I'm going to start here. Most of the changes we made are in the operating picture. So I do want to start here with some of the features that we added. So I want to talk first about the right side drawer and the natural disaster information that we recently added into Topo. So now what you're going to see around earthquakes is the ability for us to show earthquakes with a different iconography. And these have different meanings. So a red icon here means that this is a very recent earthquake as opposed to an orange one. It changes colors as it ages. The size of this particular icon will matter as well. So the size, depending on the magnitude, could be larger or smaller. So that's been a change as well. When you click on this particular earthquake here, what you're going to see is a different header at the top. So this right side drawer here has a different information at the top, more concise information. We think it's much easier to get a quick idea for both the magnitude, the location, the date. Obviously, you can always zoom to it as well. Down below, we're going to have a default. This is still configurable, so just make sure we're all understand that we haven't lost any configurability in Topo here. This bottom of this particular page is still configurable. However, what we're going to do is give you a predetermined configuration that then you can go modify. But this is typically more of a best practice for you to see the information that you want. The other thing that we added, you're going to see this repeatedly in this particular demo, is the ability for you to link out and get to more of the source information. So here, by clicking on this link, I'm going to be taken into the USGS site because this is our source information, and it's going to give you all of the detail on that site. So a way for you to kind of drill very quickly to see more information. The other big change around natural disasters with earthquakes was we added shake maps. So here we're going to see the contours around the shake and really what's happening with this particular earthquake. This is something that can be turned off and on. So by right-clicking on my earthquakes layer, I can hide those. So again, something you can control, your users can control this as well. But a good thing to know, obviously, from a shake map is this is going to give you a pretty good idea for, as this earthquake hits, what's affected by these contours in terms of when it actually happened, and what's going to actually be felt by people as they get further and further away from the center of this particular earthquake. So that's earthquakes. For tropical cyclones, as we all know, it's not really season for those. We don't have any tropical cyclones in the map right now, which is great. We won't have those probably till around the June timeframe. So I just want to talk to a few of the changes we made around tropical cyclones. We did make changes to the right side drawer for that as well. So very similar to earthquakes, we added a lot of information. The other thing we did is we went out and we're now going to gather information from the National Hurricane Center and the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. We're going to bring in details like the latest forecast. If you remember Ian last year, the forecasts were coming out of the National Hurricane Center approximately 2 to 6 hours. We're going to be on that same frequency, giving you updates that'll appear inside of Topo at that particular time. So you're going to get things like the discussions that are going on, the forecasts, all that rich information coming out of the National Hurricane Center, we're going to put into Topo as well in the right side drawer. So a lot of this data has been augmented, which is great. I think we'll see that as we start to get into that major storm season. For typhoons that are in the Pacific region and the Indian Ocean basin as well, we're going to get data coming out of the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Not as rich as the National Hurricane Center, but definitely more than we had before. So something else to keep in mind as around tropical cyclones. For weather alerts, here we formatted these a little bit differently in Topo as well. So we've gotten the ability now to have the full description that shows up in the body. The one thing we have left to do here is to format this just like it would from the National Weather Service, so it's a little bit more clear. But for now, we do have the full descriptions coming in here as well. We kept all the other features we had. For example, the coloring comes in as well, so you can understand these by the colors that we get from the National Weather Service, for example. And the top of the right side drawer as well has been changed. So we want it so that you got that information at a glance. So we know there's a tornado watch, we know where this is, we know when the expiration date is very quickly, and we know obviously where it is. So this is, again, this right side drawer, having this information at your fingertips and always be consistent when you click on one of these natural disasters or weather alerts is pretty important, we feel, so that you have this information very quickly and easily. Then lastly, wildfires. What we did with wildfires was we added, again, same sort of thing. At the top of the right side drawer, you're going to get details about the fire name, where it is, active days, how big this is. We also included perimeters where available. So as we get into fire season, what you're going to start to see are for some of the larger fires that are happening most likely out west, you're going to see those perimeter polygons inside of Topo as well. We are augmenting this data from InciWeb, so you're going to see additional information that shows up in the right side drawer as well at the bottom. So again, we want to give you as much information as possible and augment our data so that you have the most possible information you can have about these natural disasters. So that's a little bit about the natural disasters and what we did there with the enhancements this year. I want to talk a little bit too about just in general, the right side drawer and how we formatted some things differently. Or better, in my opinion. So things like, for example, a typical asset like a facility, what we're going to show you here is the name. The address is now going to be formatted and pulled together. You can show images here, don't have to. If we don't have an image, this will just collapse up so that you can see that. So again, just more formatting that we're doing at the top of these right side drawer displays. So you have this information and it's easy for you to digest what's in there. Same goes for a power outage. So for a power outage, what we're going to show here is, again, details about where this power outage is occurring. It could be a statewide, countywide, or in this case, a city. We're going to give you information about how many potential people are out of power. And then we're also, again, going to have the ability for you to view this from our source. So here's Power Outage US, and we're going to show you exactly what you would see if you got immediately taken to that particular site. So again, very quick and easy to see this information, digest it. In the right side drawer down below, again, as a best practice, we're going to have things like the city and the state, the utilities involved as well. So all that information is going to be pre-formatted. But again, below the bar, you can configure the data as you see fit by going into your data set and configuring your page. And then lastly, in terms of integrations and also formatting, I wanted to show something that we added that's new. We added the ability for flight data to come into Topo. Now, this is a paid-for integration. We do have this through Flight Radar 24, but this is going to give you information about every flight around the globe. And what I have here is this filtered onto Delta flights. So as we can kind of zoom in here, what we're going to see is information about these particular flights. These are all Delta flights that I have configured and filtered on this particular page. We can track any flight, regardless of it being private or commercial. As long as it has ADS-B transponder on it, we can go ahead and see that particular flight. So that's something we can do. Again, this is something that's paid for by, you have to have a contract with Flight Radar 24 to see this data, but we can bring it in and show you this data in terms of the flights that are coming in. So again, to kind of zoom in, you can kind of see this is the Atlanta airport, so we can see this information. When we bring out the right side drawer, what we're going to see here are details such as, hey, where does this flight originate from? Where's it going to? In this case, it's probably landed. We can also view this flight on Flight Radar 24. So if we look at something that's still in the air, for example, we'll view this on Flight Radar 24, it's going to take you right into that and get the detail in Flight Radar 24 about this particular flight. So again, something that we've added here is a paid-for subscription that you would have to go ahead and contract with Flight Radar, but we do have that built. So it would be as easy as putting in your API key to get that data to flow into into TopoONE. So that's flights, and that's really a lot of the details, like I said, we did around the right side drawer formatting. The other thing that I mentioned earlier was the Crisis24 branding. So now we have Crisis24 branding. You'll also notice that on the login page as well. So we do have that branding in the application now. The new product name is TopoONE by Crisis24. So that's now prevalent on the pages that we have as well. And I'm going to pause there. Bridget and Kelly, any questions so far that have come in?
One question that I received separately was in regards to the Flight Radar 24, there was a button for add alert. Is that functionality available yet?
Great question. Yeah, and because this is what we would call a shared data set, for example, this add to alerts is something that's coming soon. So what would potentially, one of the use cases that we would have for this particular data set, this particular layer, would be the ability for you to say, hey, this is a flight that maybe I'm tracking whether or not something is going wrong with this flight. Maybe there's a squawk code that the pilot has communicated out. So we could say something like add to alerts, which would then create an alert from this particular asset that I could manage. Same is going to hold true as we get to more shared data sets around weather alerts, where when I have a weather alert that's in a shared data set, what I can do with that is the same sort of thing. So we'll have that button here as well, where I can go ahead and say, yeah, I only want the weather alerts for awareness, but when something does impact me, then I want to go ahead and create an alert from that. So a great example is I would have a weather alert in an awareness standpoint. And then when we have something like maybe a tornado watch or a warning, and when that does, it comes in proximity to a particular asset, we would have that add to alerts button here for you then to manage that via the workflow. So then the analyst would go ahead and triage that, potentially communicate out about that particular alert as well. So that's something that is coming in the future, that add to alerts, where you can manage that and keep everything else as awareness. Really good
Thanks,
question.
Mike.
Yeah. Any other questions so far?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. The next feature is something that we released, again, I think it was last month that we released this particular feature, but you're going to notice there is a little bell icon now in the upper right. And what this is for notifications that are coming into TopoONE. These are what we call in-app notifications. So the purpose of these is primarily so that potentially if I'm zoomed into a particular area of the map, let's say here I happen to be in the Atlanta, Georgia area, but an alert would come in another part of the map, for example. Maybe I didn't see a pin pop in Great Britain or London that was critical. So what I can do now is set up the application to alert me so that I know that while I'm maybe focused maybe on the Atlanta, Georgia area, I do have something that has come in another part of the world that I need to go ahead and take action on. So that's what we would call an in-app notification. That's one use case. I'm going to show you how to set that up in the map now. So again, by going into workbench mode, what you're going to be able to do for alerts now is go ahead and edit one of your layers. So let's look at Crisis24. We're going to edit this particular layer. On the Advanced tab, what you're going to see here now is this Include in Notifications. So this toggle will be off by default, but you can turn it on. So what this will do is tell the application that when I get an alert in this particular case, a Crisis24 Intel alert, go ahead and put that into my in-app notifications queue. And also I can play a sound so that if maybe I need that audio sound to let me know that something's come in. Maybe I'm not even in my browser, for example. Maybe I'm in Word or Outlook or another application, so that this audio alert would also be a cue for me to come back into the application to see that something has happened. So here we have a bunch of different sounds that can play based on what you want it to have. The advantage here is obviously you can pick the audio alert that makes the most sense for you, but you can also, if you do have multiple Intel providers and you want to set up different notification sounds by provider, you could do that as well. So this is where you would set this up at a layer level to have those notifications when they do come in, pop up, and then you would hear that notification sound as well when that comes in. So that's one of the first use cases. The other use case we have is when you do have alerts that are in the application and you do want to comment on one of those alerts to let somebody else know about, maybe to take a look at it, or maybe you have something that you want to share with a particular person about an alert. So with our commenting feature, now when you mention somebody in a comment, this will also put this into their alert queue. So here I can say something like, hey, please take a look at this. It's a comment, and I'm going to go ahead and say, and post. So now what's going to happen here is it's going to go ahead and post it as a comment, but you're going to notice this is what happens, that will pop up just like an alert would, so that they're alerted wherever they are on the map. And then it's also going to be put into under the bell here. you're going to see that information that was just posted. So that comment that I just posted will be in here, so they can go ahead and take a look at that. If an alert happens to pop up, you'll see the card view for that alert as well. So again, I don't have any alerts that have come in just yet, but if one would, it would be put in here as a card, and you would see multiple of those. So as those alerts start to come into the queue, this notifications queue, you're going to see all of those. You can clear those at any time. They will clear out automatically as well. So they won't keep piling up, and you won't have thousands of these in here, because the system will clear these over time automatically for you. But they will be here for a period of time where you can go ahead and take a look at those. So that's, again, really a first version of our in-app notifications here in terms of what we did. We're always looking for feedback about how we can make this more valuable to you. I think we added 2 really good use cases to start, which would be, again, if you are located somewhere on the map and don't realize an alert has come in, or if you want to go ahead and have those comments where you mention people to have them alerted as well, are 2 good use cases. But again, looking for feedback on that as always, to see what other types of use cases you would have. So here's a good example. One just came in from Crisis24, so we can see what that looks like when I open up the queue. I couldn't have timed this one any better. So here you can see, here's the alert that comes in. It's essentially the card view for this particular alert. So I can see that it has come in. So again, pretty easy to use. Hopefully easy for you to set up as well after you take those steps on your layer to go ahead and get to the advanced settings and set those up. All right, pause there. Kelly or Bridget, any more questions so far?
Yeah, so you just mentioned you're soliciting feedback. So this client was wondering, what's the best route to get that feedback to you?
Yeah, great question. So you can always go ahead and hit the email to our support email address, which will come in to our support team, which is probably the best way. That'll create a ticket in our system so we can get back to you and get some feedback, because that's obviously one way. But obviously reaching out to Kelly and Bridget too, always a good way as well. But yeah, either any one of those methods will work just fine to get us some feedback. All right. So those are the main features I wanted to demo in the application today. I want to walk through the roadmap so everyone's aware of where we're headed throughout the next few months, and then also through the rest of the year, so we get a good idea for what the future holds for TopoONE. So let me go ahead and switch back into our slideshow here. All right. So the one thing I didn't show you in the application was the multilingual capabilities inside of TopoONE. So I do want to show a screenshot for what that would look like. So for any particular user that has, or for any organization, I should say, that has multiple languages associated with it, your users are going to be able to go into their profile and go ahead and select the language that makes the most sense for them. What that's going to do is it's going to go ahead, and the underlying map will change as well. So the underlying map will be translated to that language. And then everything that TopoONE has in it that is really static text, so things like the header bar here, buttons, for example, will be translated to that particular language. The one thing that won't be translated is things that you would put into Topo, such as, for example, your map name. Now, if you're free to enter this in French, that's fine. But what we're not going to do is automatically translate the user entered content that you would put into Topo. So things like your map name, your layer names, you're free to type those in any language you want, but there's no automatic translation between different people, for example. So that's one thing to keep in mind, but everything else in the application is translated. One of the things that's coming very, very soon is the ability for you to also see Crisis24 Intel in multiple languages as well. The only Intel provider on the market that I'm aware of that can send out information in different languages, so you can target a language for a particular user to receive Intel in that preferred language. And then what we also are going to offer on-demand translation as well, which is really important when you look at things coming from LifeRaft, for example, that may include social media content that needs to be translated maybe into the user's target language. So maybe we have a Twitter post that was maybe in Russian, but I don't speak Russian, I speak English. In Topo, you'll have the ability to translate that on demand so that I can see that in my preferred language, which would be English. So again, we have this in the application today. The translated Crisis24 Intel is coming soon, probably next month, and then we'll have that finished. But for right now, you can translate the AI application into any language. Again, this is one of those where we do have to enable this capability. There is a cost associated with the different languages. So if there is a need, you have something this is interesting to you, please contact your account manager, and we can go ahead and price that out. All right, so that's the last of the features that we have delivered. What I want to talk about next is the roadmap. And I like to start the roadmap with what the TopoONE application is going to look like when we're to a point where it's basically completed. So today we have the operating picture, we have an incident management system. What we're working on next is mass notifications. So I'm going to show you some screenshots of what that looks like. Later in the year, we're going to get to crisis events. And then we also have our Site Watch module that's coming soon as well. So these are the 5 modules that really we see as a complete CEM tool on the market and that we're striving to get to. So again, 2 of these modules we're going to talk about in this presentation in terms of what we have plans for both near term and a little bit later on down in this year. So for April, like I mentioned before, always doing integrations. We've got Linnell up as well for an integration, Secure as well. We've already started that Secure integration. And then as far as the operating picture goes, one of the things that we've had on the roadmap for a little while is the idea of a hover view. So the ability for you to hover over a pin and quickly get information about that pin or polygon without having to click on it. And again, like everything in Topo, that being customizable. So you can determine what fields go into that little hover view so that you get the key information that your analyst would need as they're looking at things on a map. A couple other things we're going to be working on as well for the operating picture is more enhancements around how you can control the marker colors and default your marker colors. That's a big thing for us as well too, to be able to have more consistency with how the layers and the colors for those layers show inside of Topo. Also be able to, like we said before, I think we mentioned this earlier, the idea around creating alerts from shared data sets, again, allowing you to have those weather data sets more as awareness. But then when you do have something you want to turn into alert, you can quickly and easily do that. And then lastly, we're enhancing our weather. So the MapsGL technology is coming to Topo very soon. Kind of give you a look at what that looks like here. So while this isn't in motion, this is something that will be in motion when we have it in Topo. So what this is going to give us is some greater information about the weather as you're putting different layers on your map. So this happens to be wind particles, and this would show movement of those wind particles. And as you begin to hover over the different areas of the map, what you're going to get are more details around that. So today in TopoONE, our weather imagery are just essentially small little image tiles that have no data behind them. However, with these new enhanced maps and these new enhanced layers, what you're going to have is the ability for you to look at the details around those particular images that are on a map. So this is a MapsGL technology that we're going to be adding. So not every map weather imagery layer is going to be enhanced like this, but we will have a little designated badge. So when you go and configure your weather imagery, you'll know which ones are enhanced with this new technology. I'd say there's probably about 30 to 40 of these new type of weather imagery maps that we'll be releasing this month. Then in May, I talked a little bit about the Crisis24 Horizon integrations. So what we're going to move to there is a different platform within inside of Crisis24 for Intel. This is going to give us the capability to have the multilingual Intel coming into TopoONE. It's also going to be a more enhanced, I would say, data feed that we're going to get from Crisis24 in terms of the Intel ratings. So we got some significant changes that I think are all for the better to be able to see that Crisis24 data that we showed today. Again, with integrations, we're going to go ahead and have Cameo, which is a video analytics tool that we're going to put into TopoONE as an integration. 7P is a supply chain vendor that has great tracking around shipments that are going on either via plane or truck with their GPS devices that they attach to shipments. Mapped In is a hyperlocal map visualization tool. So this is a great use case for viewing a particular property, and you want to get down to a floor layer level so that I can see maybe the cameras and where they're located in on a particular floor, or where those alarms are located. So Mapped In, again, this is something that Mapped In is another vendor that would be able to render all those drawings, which we can then visualize inside of TopoONE. As far as the operating picture, What we want to do here is get to a place where you can determine which assets are actually impacted by a threat. So today, what we show you are the closest assets to a particular alert. But what we want to give you the ability to do is to actually tell us which ones are truly impacted, so that down the road you can run reports that would show you truly by facility or by asset what threats have affected that particular asset. So it can give you some really rich reporting around things you could potentially take proactively as you start to see which of your assets have the most threats to them. Then one more thing too we have is our data set pick lists. This is a great thing for you to be able to show custom fields inside of Topo that are pick lists that are based on a data set that you would upload. So lots of different use cases around that to add that into Topo as well. I'm going to pause there for any questions, Kelly or Bridget, before I move on. Anything else come in?
No, not this time, Mike. I don't have any extra questions.
Let's move into June. So June is where we're going to start to hit our first release of mass notifications. So this is going to be a feature that we're going to release, and it's going to enhance what we have today in terms of the communications that we have inside of Topo. So today in Topo, we have the ability to go ahead and send out notifications by email and by Slack and Teams. What we're adding are more channels. So text messaging, SMS. We're also adding text to voice as well. And then the big change would be two-way communications around those particular channels. So the ability for you to actually make sure that, for example, that your assets are safe. So if you do have some sort of an event, let's just say it's an active shooter near a building and maybe there's 1,000 people in that building, you could send out a message to those 1,000 people and request for them to send back a communication to let you know whether they're safe or not, for example. So that's what that two-way communication would bring into the application, as a way for then you to gather all of those responses that are coming back from your particular assets about what's happening. That would include direct messages as well in Slack and Teams. I believe we've already released the Slack DMs. I think Teams is right behind it as well. So you might already see the Slack direct message setting that we have enabled in Communication Center. We can also cascade and schedule notifications with this new module. We can have multi-channel communication, so the ability there for you to create templates that could be sent out by Slack and email and maybe SMS all at once, or you can cascade them based on some frequency or when you receive responses. So lots of ways to schedule and craft these communications to make sure that obviously your assets are safe is the whole idea around this new module. I'm going to show a couple screenshots of what that potentially would look like as that begins to ship, and like I said, in May and June. The other big one on this list for June would be tasks. So tasks are very important around incident management, particularly, also crisis event management too, when we add that functionality. So we'll have the ability to create tasks. First off, this will be in our incident management system, where you'll have the ability to create tasks that are maybe to-do lists, for example, or maybe they're just a plain text task where you can type in the actual instruction that you have for a person. But the most important thing about a task is it is workflow enabled. So you can then say, this task is assigned to this person, and that person will get a notification of what they need to do. And it follows whatever workflow you would have. So as it goes from, again, start to finish, all that is tracked via email, with the most important thing being the notifications that are coming out from the system to let people know that they have certain tasks to do. And so an idea for what the mass notifications module would look like inside of Topo, what we're looking at here is a landing page that would show you all the active, or maybe some of the all the notifications that were sent out, some of them being active, some of them probably already being closed out. But what you can kind of see from this is you get a good idea for what state is it in terms of its workflow, because it will be workflow enabled like everything in Topo. You will have a name, for example. You'll also be able to see what channels this was sent out on very quickly, and then also a quick synopsis of the delivery status for this particular message that has gone out. So again, a quick and easy way for you to see, again, the overall details about those messages that have been either are active or have been sent inside of Topo. And then also a message here, or at least a screenshot here, of what would it look like to create a new notification. This is something that we're still working on today to make sure we've got the best possible user interface to make sure it's very easy for users to create these. These typically in some organizations aren't something you do every day. Maybe there's once a year, maybe they're only several times a year. So again, ease of use, again, is always at the forefront for us to make sure that it's easy to create these different types of notifications that can go out. So things that we're seeing here, for example, would be what channels would this go out on? What's the main message I want to send? Who do I want to send it to? What type? So we will have different types of messages as well, whether it's a one-way, a two-way, maybe it's something that I have to attach a meeting to that I want people to join. Maybe it's a survey where I want to ask a bunch of questions of the recipients as well. So again, ease of use for first and foremost on our mind. And then here's what it would look like as a message is potentially in progress. So as I drill into one of these messages, so what I can get here is what do we have in terms of recipients? What's their status? Because they'll have a status as well. And then maybe a good idea of the summary of this message in terms of what's been delivered, maybe what's failed, and then maybe the survey results that we get back from the particular recipients as they answer the question that we're sending them. So again, these are just some representative screenshots that we're looking at for this particular module in terms of what this would look like. This will be a new module on the TopoONE platform that will be priced out just like we did with incident management. So this will be something that will be in addition to the operating picture and incident management. So there is a cost to this as well as this gets released. So again, if you're interested again on this one, always love the feedback too. So this is, like I said before, currently being designed and developed at this point, but always interested in feedback. So if you definitely want to get involved in that process, please reach out to Kelly or Bridget. We can get you on that list. And then if you have questions later on about pricing, obviously your account manager is the best person to talk about with that. All right, I'm going to stop again. Kelly, any questions, or Bridget, anything so far?
Actually, you just answered the question that we had regarding if the mass communications were included in the pricing. So thank you for covering that.
Awesome. Okay, then looking out a little bit, so we have a lot of clarity about what we're doing the next 3 months. What we're now going to look at is what we're looking at for the rest of Q2, Q3, and Q4. And so these are a little bit further out, like I said before. So again, not as much clarity on these, but these are the things that we have planned as of this point in time. So for those of you that are using the GSOC wall display, we are going to go ahead and finish that out in terms of getting those impacted assets, those numbers in there as a widget that you can put on to that particular display, along with the status counts as well. So we'll finish that out as part of the wall display. Map Legends is a big one that's been around for a while, but as we've added a whole bunch of functionality and layers to our maps, one of the things that our customers have wanted the most are those map legends. So the idea that we have around map legends is the ability for you to configure those and show those on demand, but also configure those map legends. So as you begin to share your maps with users that maybe aren't Topo users, they understand what the different pins and polygons on those maps mean. As far as integrations go, we do have another round of Flight Radar 24 to add machine learning to that. So we can get more and more precise about what we see with flights and how we manage those flights. There's a lot of use cases around that. Again, with that use case of particularly knowing when flights potentially are in trouble. Like for those of you that are using LifeRaft, we are going to go ahead and go to a webhook model so that we get LifeRaft query results pushed to us versus we poll for those. So that's coming soon as well. This is an example of what the map legends would look like. So this is something that could be called up essentially. So you can see down in the lower left here, we have this new little icon that'll give you the ability to show the map legend. And then here's where I would be able to see the different legends as for what I have displayed on the map. So because I have radar enabled, for example, on this map, I would see the radar legend. Because I have weather alerts also enabled, I would see the legend for weather alerts and so on. So again, this is something that we will be smart about in terms of showing you the right legends for whatever layers you have, but it'll also be configurable as well, so that you can configure these map legends. And then as far as the rest of the year, so looking out a little bit further down the road, Q3 and Q4 for us. So we're obviously going to continue to enhance mass notifications. We're going to be adding more channels like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, some other types of communication channels that customers would need. So that's going to be something we'll add to mass notifications. And like always, we'll look at the customer feedback that we receive on that module and continue to enhance it based on our customer feedback. The other big one is a homepage. We've been asked by several customers for more of a TopoONE homepage that would come in and allow those people to see, hey, what are my top 3 alerts that I need to be concerned about? What are maybe some of the tasks that I have to complete for me? Or maybe I want to see maybe some snapshots of some metrics on that homepage. So a good landing page that gives me an idea for, at a glance, what's going on with my TopoONE instance, which I'm going to show you a screenshot of as well. Mobile is on our roadmap as well, along with crisis events. So crisis event is that next module that we're looking at, again, towards the end of the year, to have that come out as well. I'm going to show you a little bit about what that looks like too. This is a rendering of what the homepage would potentially look like. So again, the ability for you to see maybe on the left-hand side here, maybe the top alerts that are coming in, and maybe you can filter those by just maybe the highs and criticals or the severity 5s, for example. Also, you could potentially see your tasks that you have to complete that are still out there or pending for you, along with metrics at the top. This, again, could be something that, again, is configurable, where you can add the widgets on this page that make the most sense to you. Very similar to how we do it with our analytics module, where I can go ahead and drag on different widgets so that I can see information that makes the most sense, again, for me. So that's the idea of a homepage. And then lastly, wanted to show you and try to introduce the concept around crisis event management. So this is really a big piece in the puzzle for us. And the idea around this module is when you do have an event that occurs, and typically an event that occurs that's serious in nature, obviously, but also something that probably happens over the course of maybe hours or days, as opposed to an incident which may have a life cycle of weeks or months. But a crisis event is something that, again, maybe affects your duty of care. Maybe it's an active shooter situation. In this case, we're showing a plane crash, again, in this particular case. But the idea here is that this crisis event management module will allow you to manage this particular crisis event inside of TopoONE. So we're going to have all the information that you would need. So here, we're going to show you the information on the left-hand side. We're also going to show you the assets that are affected by this particular crisis event. Similar to incident management, we'll have the timeline in the middle. So this is, again, where we can start to then piece together all the information we need to manage this crisis. So in this case, it might be some video from, in this case, CNN. It may be also maybe just links out to different things that we have, maybe still images, but it's going to give us a context of what's going on with the crisis event. We're going to see then all of the tasks that are out there that need to be performed, because essentially what we're doing here is we're activating a business continuity plan, essentially, and we're executing on that plan here. So what we want is this crisis event management module will be a place where all of the stakeholders, all of the affected parties that have to execute on those plans would come to in real time to manage this particular event. So tasks are a big part of this module, where we can automatically generate those tasks, generate the workflow around them, start assigning them out, start to track how those tasks are being done and completed, so that we know that this crisis event is being handled just as our plans are laid out. So again, this is something that is still, for us, we have a lot of design for this particular module. Like I said before, this is something that's Q3, Q4 for us to deliver this. This, similar to mass communications, this will be a new module on the system as well that we'll offer. All right, and that's all I wanted to show today. Any more last questions, Kelly, from the group?
Yeah, we did get a question just about if this session was recorded and if they could get a copy of it to share with the folks in their organization who were unable to attend.
Yes, we did record it, and yes, we will go ahead and send that out. And then I would just say, as far as the next one of these, so we'll, again, probably do another one of these in the next several months as we, again, continue to release new features. We'll do another one of these product showcases where we can send out the registration links. It'll probably most likely be on a different platform moving forward. We'll move this up to, I think we're going to use GoToWebinar moving forward, but it'll be the same format, where we'll show you all the new features in the application, and then also walk through the roadmap and show you how the roadmap's progressing. All right, so if no other questions, think we'll end this now. And yes, we will go ahead and send out the links to this for the recording so that whoever couldn't attend will be able to view the recording. All right. Thanks everybody for attending. Have a great holiday weekend.